So when you're talking about the Nile and we're talking about ancient Egypt, how far back do you think that goes?
Oh, I think the Nile goes back a very, very, very long way. The Nile River system, 12.
A pyramid built over two older pyramids, the remains of Chinese laborers found in an ancient pyramid in Peru, and the contents of a mysterious sarcophagus finally revealed decades after it was first discovered. These are terrifying secrets buried under ancient pyramids. The Kukulkan Pyramid, or El Castillo at Chichen Itza, is one of the most iconic Mayan pyramids, but there's a lot we still don't know about it. In 2016, though, researchers discovered something inside it, another pyramid. And this wasn't even the first time a pyramid had been found hidden beneath the outer shell. Back in 1930, excavations revealed that El Castillo was actually built over an older pyramid, which contained a red jaguar throne decorated with jade. But it wasn't until much later, 2016, that archaeologists realized the pyramid was built on top of yet another structure. So it's like a series of ancient pyramids stacked on top of each other, sort of like an archaeological Russian doll. Thermal imaging showed this earlier pyramid had a small staircase and possibly an altar. The outer shell we see today was likely built around 1,000 years ago. The second pyramid seems to be from between 800 to 1000 CE, and the innermost one is of course even older, likely from the pure Maya period. There's a pyramid in Dahshur, Egypt that's been a bit of a puzzle. There's not much left of it now thanks to stone robbing over the years, but there have been some interesting discoveries over the years. In 2017, an alabaster block was found with the name Ameni Kamaud inscribed on it. The weird part was that another pyramid not too far away was also known to belong to this same man. But why was this weird? Well, have you ever heard of Ameni Kamaud? I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm gonna guess most of you haven't, and that's because he wasn't exactly an important pharaoh. He ruled for just about 2 years, sometime around 1790 BCE. So why does he have two pyramids? That was the question on everyone's mind. Well, about a month after the discovery of the alabaster block, they found something odd in his pyramid, a burial chamber. But instead of finding his body, they found a wooden box, and this box was used to hold canopic jars, the containers where organs were stored during mummification. The name Hatshepset was carved on it, not the more famous Hatshepsut, but Hatshepset, a completely unknown name. From there, though, archaeologists worked backward and came up with a theory. Hatshepset was likely Ameni Kamaud's daughter, and when she died, he took over another pyramid, erased the original name, and put his own on it. The pyramid wasn't built for him, he just repurposed someone else's tomb. In 1907, archaeologists uncovered a tiny sarcophagus during an excavation in Giza, and it sat in a museum for over a century, mostly forgotten. The little coffin was beautifully carved, but in a pretty rough state, so it couldn't be opened in fear that the thing would just crumble into dust. It wasn't until recently, with the help of advanced imaging technology, that researchers were able to take a look inside. They thought they'd find maybe embalmed organs from an adult, but instead what they found were the remains of a miscarriage. The remains were carefully arranged, with the little arms crossed, and the sarcophagus was a perfect miniature of the wooden coffins used around 664 to 525 BCE. Julie Dawson of the Fitzwilliam Museum said, "This groundbreaking find educated us further still in our conception of just how precious the unborn child was in ancient Egypt society. The care taken in preparation of this burial clearly demonstrates the value placed on life, even in the first weeks of its inception." Now, in 2017, the Peruvian Ministry of Culture announced something pretty strange. They discovered the remains of 16 Chinese laborers buried on top of an ancient pyramid in Lima, known as a huaca. This pyramid wasn't built by the Chinese. It was constructed by a group called the Icma, who lived around 1,000 years ago, before being absorbed by the Inca and later destroyed by Spanish conquistadors. So how did these Chinese laborers end up here? Well, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, around 100,000 Chinese immigrants were lured to Peru, often under false pretenses. Some were also just straight up kidnapped. They worked as laborers mostly, and after Peru outlawed slavery, plantations still needed cheap labor, so they started turning to Chinese immigrants to fill this gap. But conditions were horrendous and the laborers were treated terribly. Now, as for why these 60 men were buried on top of the pyramid, well, the Chinese community at the time wasn't allowed to bury their their dead in the Peruvian cemeteries. So instead, they turned to an ancient site, a place where they probably felt like they could still bury their dead with some kind of dignity. In 2017, Yukinori Kawai, an Egyptologist, called this, quote, the discovery of the century. The Scan Pyramid project had been using advanced tech to scan Khufu's massive pyramid for a while, and they finally spotted something interesting. There were hidden voids inside the pyramid. They found a huge 100-foot-long void directly above the long hallway leading to Khufu's burial chamber, and it didn't look like an accident. This was intentionally designed. So what is it? Some think the hidden hallway is, well, hiding something. Treasure, mummies, yada yada, but one Cambridge archaeologist thinks the void's location right above the stone blocks of the king's chamber means it could have been a part of the construction process, a kind of empty space left when the giant blocks were moved into place, and that there's probably no grand mystery or secret chamber filled with ancient treasures hidden inside. The void is sealed up though, and since there are no access points, we may never know what's really inside, if anything at all. Cats were sacred animals to the ancient Egyptians. There have been lots of mummified cats found buried alongside their owners, but there have also been other mummified animals found at ancient burial sites in Egypt, and some of them may surprise you. Archaeologists have uncovered a wide range of mummified animals like rams, gazelles, dogs, entire bulls, even scarab beetles, basically anything you could think of. Kings and queens often had their pets buried with them, sometimes even killed specifically to accompany them into the afterlife. It's a strange glimpse into how Egyptians viewed the afterlife. These animals were intended to serve their owners in their next life, just like they did in the real world. Egypt isn't the only place where animals have been found buried in pyramids, though. During excavations at Teotihuacan, an ancient city in Mexico, archaeologists discovered the remains of nearly 200 animals. There were pumas, eagles, wolves, all buried deep beneath the Moon Pyramid and Sun Pyramid. The animals were likely treated as offerings when the pyramids were being built between 150 and 350 CE. A lot of the bones showed signs of brutal treatment, looked like these animals were captured and raised in captivity, probably to be used in sacrificial rituals. And here's something really creepy. People may have been fed to these animals. Researchers used what's called isotope analysis on the remains to confirm this, finding high levels of nitrogen isotopes that showed the animals may have fed on humans or dogs. They also looked to have a lot of maize in their diet, again, meaning they were probably raised in captivity. Some of the animals were even taxidermied, stuffed, and preserved after they'd been killed so that they could still be used in rituals after their deaths. In 2003, while checking out the feathered serpent pyramid in Teotihuacan, once again, archaeologist Sergio Gomez noticed a weird crack in the ground near the stairs. A little rain had exposed a divot, and when Gomez took a closer look, he realized there was something strange underneath, so he got permission to dig. And what they uncovered was a round shaft about 40 feet deep, and they soon realized it was the entrance to something much bigger, a secret tunnel system that ran under the pyramid. As they dug deeper, they found that the tunnel stretched over 330 feet beneath the pyramid, leading to a mysterious cross-shaped chamber directly under the top of the pyramid. As the team cleared out over 400 tons of debris, they started finding thousands of artifacts. There were tools, offerings, fool's gold scattered throughout, and it was beautiful because the walls of the tunnel were coated in this fool's gold, which made the whole area shimmer in the dark. At first they thought these artifacts were just left by people who had come across the ruins centuries later, but the deeper they went, the stranger things got. In some areas, the tunnel was filled with pools of liquid mercury, and the walls had strange chemical markings. They also found signs that the tunnel may have been flooded intentionally as part of some religious ritual. When the Great Pyramid of Khufu was built, the ancient Egyptians had tomb raiders on their minds. These pyramids were treasure troves, and people were going to try to steal what was inside. So they came up with a way to keep their pharaoh's remains safe, or as safe as they could. The system was a kind of primitive machine designed to block anyone from getting in. Here's how it worked. After they placed Khufu's body in the burial chamber, they sealed the room by releasing 3 giant stone slabs that slid down these carved grooves and sealed the entrance. They had another set of 3 stone blocks to block off the tunnel. tunnel, completely blocking off their inner chamber. As for whether this actually worked, they're not sure. When archaeologists opened the king's chamber, they found the sarcophagus, but it was empty. So did the tomb get robbed anyway? Well, maybe, but some believe the sarcophagus wasn't meant for the king at all. It was just a decoy, another trick to kind of throw off any raiders. If Khufu's remains are still in there, they're probably tucked away somewhere incredibly secure. As for where, that's anyone's guess, and honestly, we may never know. Now, when we think of ancient civilizations, it's easy to see them as these distant, almost mystical beings, totally separate from ourselves, but the idea that people would etch pretty mundane stuff into something as grand as the Pyramid of Giza just seems surreal. But people are people. They did what we'd probably do if building something given the opportunity. They left their mark. One of the coolest discoveries in Egypt has been ancient graffiti found on the Great Pyramid at Giza. The graffiti found on the pyramid stone blocks was left by the workers who helped build it, and some of their team names are pretty funny. We've got groups like the Friends of Khufu Gang and the Drunkards of Menkaura, which makes them sound more like a rowdy group of partygoers writing in a public bathroom stall at a bar, rather than ancient laborers constructing, just one of the 7 wonders of the world. Also, Romans visiting Egypt wrote stuff as well. One of the best quotes found reads, "I looked, I investigated, I arrived, I marveled." An ancient version of I was there type post. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.